Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. In this video we're going to discuss the latest book I read. It's about Islam and how the Islamic people perceive their religion and the holy war against non-believers. So this book that I read was written by John Esposito, called Unholy. It's quite suggestive title, and it covers many aspects of the Muslim religion, how Saudi Arabia got to be so ultra conservative. There are some very good quotations that I want to bring in this discussion. So the first quotation is about Saudi Arabia, how they got where they are. So let me start this quotation. So Muhammad ibn Abd al-Wahhab joined religious zeal with military might and allied with Muhammad ibn Saud, a local tribal chief, to form a religio-political movement. Ibn Saud used this Wahhabism as a religious ideal to legitimate his jihad to subdue and unite the tribes of Arabia, converting them to this puritanical version of Islam. Like the Kharjites, the Wahhabi viewed all Muslims who resisted as unbelievers who could be fought and killed. They were therefore to be subdued in the name of the Islamic egalitarianism. In the early 19th century, Muhammad Ali of Egypt defeated the Saudis, but the Wahhabi movement and the House of Saud proved very resilient. In the early 20th century, Abdulaziz ibn Saud recaptured Riyadh with the help of the Brotherhood, or Ikhwan, which is a non-tribal military. He once again united the tribes of Arabia, restored the Saudi kingdom, and spread the Wahhabi movement. The kingdom melded the political and religious. It was led by a succession of kings from the House of Saud, with the close support of the religious establishment, many of whom are descendants of al-Wahhab, since they had married into the royal family. The House of Saud appealed to Wahhabi Islam for legitimacy, has also used it against it by dissidents, as discussed in the next chapter. In November 1979, the militants seized the Grand Mosque in Mecca, accused the royal family of compromising their Wahhabi faith, and called for the overthrow of the House of Saud. Again in 1990s, and the aftermath of the Gulf War, the Saudi government had to move forcefully to arrest and silence independent, non-government ulama in Mecca, Medina, and Riyadh, who were calling for greater political participation and accountability and denouncing religious deviance. End of the quotation. Another topic covered by the book is the topic of jihad, but also of who and how perceived this core concept in Islam, which is jihad. And you have these radical thinkers like Sayyid Qutb. I have a quotation from him. I start. It is not the intention of Islam to force its beliefs on people, but Islam is not merely belief. Islam is a declaration of the freedom of man from servitude to other men. Thus, it strives to abolish all those systems and governments which are based on the rule of man over man and the servitude of one human being to another. When Islam releases people from this political pressure and presents to them its spiritual message, appealing to their reason, it gives them complete freedom to accept or not to accept its beliefs. However, this freedom does not mean that they can make their desires their gods, or that they can choose to remain in the servitude of other human beings. End of quotation. So we already can understand that Sayyid Qutb, which is one of the leaders of the terrorist movements, he wrote also a book, so very radicalized Islamic thinker. We already can see from this quotation that his main reinterpretation of Islam and the Quran is anti-capitalist, anti-Western, when he says to abolish the systems which are based on the rule of man over man. He obviously means the destruction or the abolition of the Western imperialism. So I would like to continue with another quotation by Muhammad Abduh. I guess this guy is born in Bangladesh, but he also got to get radical, and he also had a lot of influence in the Islamic world. So this Muhammad Abduh, so he, as Sayyid Qutb, is part of the intellectual Islamic world. I start the quotation. So Abduh wanted to make popular a hopeful attitude towards politics, a belief that human action based on rational and scientific principles could ameliorate the human condition. He felt that the intellectual, by denouncing superstitions and propagating science and philosophy, held the key to political and social progress. Needless to say, such an attitude is a radical departure from the attitude of the traditional intellectual leaders of Islam, whether they were in mainstream of orthodoxy or were philosophers transmitting a corpus of esoteric knowledge deeply suspect to orthodoxy. End of quotation. So Abduh shares radicalism of Qutb, but he takes another path. So he accepts Western scientific reasoning and principles, but he doesn't want to accept every aspect of the Western civilization. He only wants to get rid of the superstitions in Orthodox Islam. So he is a progressist Islamic thinker in some way. However, his progressism is very different than what we would name a progress intellectual in the West. A very big topic on the book is on Jihad. So what is Jihad? This is interpreted different by different schools of thought in Islam. For example, some interpret it as a defense of its own beliefs in the face of the Western imperialism, but some took it more extreme and interpret it as violent way to spread the Sharia and the Quran. So very different interpretations, from a peaceful to a violent interpretation of what jihad is for Islamists. But all schools of thought agree that jihad is a core aspect of the Muslim belief, and a big aspect of their belief is to harm unbelievers. So for them, unbelievers or infidels, how they call Christians, Jews, and the atheists, for them infidels either need to be thrown out of the society or even killed. So this is something very dangerous. What I found interesting in the book was a passage on how the British managed to be involved in the politics of the Middle Eastern tribes. I start the quotation. Often the claims and the legitimacy of rulers were equally artificial. The Hashemite family of Arabia provides an interesting example. The British created Transjordan and Iraq as states to be ruled by the Hashemite family. Prince Abdullah from Arabia was made emir or prince of Transjordan. He later upgraded to king of Jordan. Abdullah's brother, Faisal, whose rule in Syria had been ended quickly by French intervention, was then made king of Iraq by Britain. And the most volatile example of European nation building in the Middle East remains the creation of Israel, amidst competing and still unresolved religious, nationalist, and territorial claims, which resulted in the bitter legacy of the Arab-Israeli wars. End of quotation. So I want to end that all these topics on terrorism and jihad are very relative. Some radical thinkers, which are part of the Islamic intellectual establishment, or how they call it, ulama, they got too extreme, right? They reinterpreted this concept of jihad to mean violence towards Jews, Christians, atheists. But there are others who think jihad is more like a defense mechanism of protecting their own beliefs, and it's by nature not violent. If you liked this book review, please subscribe, and see you in the next episode. Bye bye.